turn on the mic. It's working now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There's the lunch. Haven't you? So, actually, let's now, in the middle of term, first of all, purple, you see the military pump. The ceremony has long been discontinued. It's revived. How we entertain. Street marches, many arms and mechanics. So invigorating. Okay. We now middle topic document transaction, and in this class we'll think about Incoterms 2000 in signal the new millennium, beginning of new millennium, and this norm, as I've said, was enacted by International Chamber of Commerce and has undergone several revisions through the often in time interval of 10 years in reflection of a change of commercial customs or other new technical needs. For example, container transportation is one factor to realize the new Incoterms. It is actually the norm which stipulates the rights and duties according to a trade terms. We identify certain terms in a bigger category of a four, F terms, C terms, D terms. We will return briefly later in this class. And often the commercial merchant employs the term in explicitly, normal cases. For example, they may define their terms based on CIF conditions. CIF New York, CIF Seoul, or CIF Tokyo. What does that mean? And also, FOB terms have long been frequented. Now considered as the second popular terms behind CIF terms. As I've said in the last class, the parties would get better if they should strictly be subject to the terms and conditions. If once they employ the term into the contract, that is because a specific arrangement which should be contradicted or standing in many ways of interpretation could confuse the court, and clarity that of a contractual consequence that the parties could expect. So the three cases need to be shared in that light. So the first case used term CIF, New York, and transaction was executed between the U.S. company, which in this case a insurance company. So it is the kind of action arising from insurance policy, insurance contract. So subrogation. The second case and third case involve the she and F terms. What is she and F term? You see in the abbreviation that I is not the spirit. I means insurance. Typically, the trade terms now dealt with in a Incoterms are purported to arrange the rights and duties about passage of risk and also allocation of a cost. Who bears the cost at what point? For example, FOB terms would relieve the obligation of a seller to about cost at the place of shipment. So ship's laying is critical line in terms of a place. To sever the seller's duty about risk of loss or damage on the subject matter of contract, and also the cost. So in that arrangement, it is ruled that the export tariffs should be borne by the seller in terms of expense cost, and also the inland transportation will be required to be paid by seller unless otherwise stipulated by parties. So the party may meddle into varying the terms in the specific commercial links. Of course, the language in clarity would be incorporated. In that case, it would be okay. The party's intent would prevail over the general understanding of a CI for trade terms. However, the problem would arise if ambiguities and compatible ways of interpretation could be possible. Then the court rather tilt on the general terms, the requirement often prescribed by Incoterms would voice more a tone and logical precision to dispose the specific case. So it is interesting, and also you need to have some basic understanding about the court system in the United States. For example, you see the word declaratory judgment in third case. So three types of a judgment will be present in rule and dominant practices, including a declaratory form of judgment and damages, judgment of damages, and a court order for a specific performance. Three types would be in your review and a understanding through the civil actions. And also, you need to know about the American legal system on civil procedure. Distinctively, two aspects would involve about federalism and dual sovereignty, as well as a interstate jurisdiction concern dealing with interstate jurisdiction. For your basics, I like to let you be aware that the federal jurisdiction is now very promising over many controversial cases. It has a strong propensity to be expanded. And also the long-arm statute enables a more flourishing jurisdiction within the interstate context. So minimum contact law now be received by all of jurisdictions, almost. And now the state court would often be found to exercise a competent jurisdiction based upon the minimum contact. And that case law theory have been endorsed by long-arm statute enacted by each respective state jurisdiction. And also two causes in legal terms should be noted about the jurisdictional competence of a federal court. So you see a diverse jurisdiction and also federal question, a concern and legal strengths to find a federal jurisdiction. As you be introduced in a second case. In that case, the lower court judgment was overruled. It erred in exercising as a choice of law or deliberation. So the circuit court found the erroneous to choose what a Texas law as a governing law. So in this case, there is some technical issue of law about area doctrine and others. So the federal district court is obliged to find the choice law enacted by the state in which they sit. So the state law is often the law they should apply according to area doctrine. That is also the case about civil matters, particularly important in view of a civil law jurisdiction. In this case, the lower court found tax law as governing law, which was overruled by the appellate court, since it involves the controversy about the norm of CISG. CISG is a treaty, and the federal law as a matter of constitution. You see the federal clause, and it illustrated the scope of federal law, including constitution and treaty and statute of Congress, U.S. Congress, and other, presidential order or decree, all would fall within that class. And if the question involves the federal controversy, then the federal court would be empowered to deal with that controversy. Then, so CISG would rather be a pertinent law against the findings of lower court. And also, you see the basic point across the three cases that there are a kind of potentially contravening clauses against the use of trade terms. So we begin with the first case, as you see St. Paul Guardian Insurance Company was a Neuromed medical system as a whole. It was decided in Southern District of New York in 2002. And the second case is titled BPO International. However, you will come across this corporation. So, might be familiar with news of pollution, ocean pollution, leakage of water. Okay, in this class we will review the export of gas, oil to Ecuador. Some specific arrangement about gum tax credits. It allegedly satisfied all the terms and conditions. However, the court not in favor, as you see in the so, the plaintiff in the first case would be an American insurance company, and, because it is CI obtains, the seller is obliged to raise the insurance contract and also transportation contract. That is not the case in CNF. Then why does the party use the CNF? It may lie in various context reasons. However, some of the principal reason in most transactions would be that there would be trade regulations, domestic trade laws in public nature to impose a compulsory subscription of domestic insurance company. Then the seller would not be a proper party to purchase the insurance products of buyer's country. So they rather elect to use a CNF instead of a CIF. In this case is controlled by the CIF. And the seller would be a German company. And of course, the case involves some misfortune about default of goods. What is it sunk? Shared image. An American corporation and Neuromed, a German corporation, entered into contract of sale for a Siemens Harmony 1.0 Telsa mobile MRI. What is the subject matter of contract? So Neuromed, we suppose is kind of the medical tools or the instruments. According to the complaint, the MRI was loaded aboard the vessel. The traffic carrier and damaged and good working order. So at the shipment place in point, the item actually found good. MRI image on board of this device to check of your car's condition or lead to find most of areas very advanced contact. How to proceed to check this device. The king suffered from liver disease, and now we disgruntled, faculty of disgruntled about the malpractice law. So now the party in this case between the insurance company and the seller. And in this kind of controversy, in civil action, the multiple parties would actually hold some stake for potential to be embroiled in the shoes. For example, transportation, a ship company could be one party who are subject to contractual remedies of transportation. And also the insurance company often be called upon to respond. It is the company to ensure the risk of loss damages item. In some cases, the shoot may develop into a multiple context in terms of parties. So we have the concept in terms of civil procedure, necessary parties, or indispensable parties, the legal effect, and the dealings will differ in terms of the concept. For example, indispensable parties must be enjoined to ensure a fair trial. The should has common strand and indispensable to include party that should be resolved at one point of the chastise, the party. So the fair trial, also a competing judge, impartial trial. Three basic goals to be ensured in the design of a civil procedure. In that case, the goal would be served by enjoining the indispensable parties. So, on that failure, the court would dispose of the case before the trial. Kind of a similar dealing involving summary judgment or threshold consideration in public. In this case, the insurance company was disgruntled about the outcome of the case. The parties explicitly stipulate the terms CIF in New York, CIPO, under the deliberative. The international sales contract often titled with a separate headings. In this case, deliberatives, and also other arrangement may be found which are pertinent to resolve this case. So it is kind of a delicate interpretive issue between the use of a trade terms and the nature of the agreement and specific context. So deliberative. So it states by money transfer to one of our accounts, with following payment term, a US $3,000 down payment to secure the system, US $744,000 prior to shipping, US $3,000 upon acceptance by Siemens of the MRI system within 3 business days after arrival in Commerce City. And it also contains a disclaimer heading section on the heading. It states system including all accessories and options remain the property of Neuromed. Their complete payment has been received. So you can see some possibility of perversion which contradict the CIF terms. The CIF terms, of course, mean just the actual possession of a goods and share a focus on context of delivery of goods. However, often we share same sense about also a transfer a property ownership. And in most probabilities, the normal transaction is simultaneously occurring, as you see, particularly in the domestic context. However, that would not coincide in time in all cases. This is precise posed in that context. So the concept should differ between CIF passage of risk and transfer of ownership. This disclaimer would ground the base of a plaintiff's argument that this provision effectively modify the perfunctory terms what they present in heading of the contract. How do you see? However, the court would reject that argument that based on some reason, as you see more in discussion. So the parties concede, pursuant to general law, the UN Convention on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods governs this transaction. In relation with incompetence concern, the Article 9.2 of CISG has greater implications in the purpose of incorporation. So, what is that? The parties are considered, unless otherwise agreed, to have impliedly made applicable the contract or its formation or uses of which the parties knew or ought to have known, and which in international trade is widely known and regularly observed by parties to contract of the type involved in particular trade concern. So the language denotes the custom, commercial custom, which could be applied as a matter of law. So three concepts you now have in this clause. The parties knew or ought to have known and widely known. So it should be on the condition that the custom is notable within the sections of the trade society, and also it should be regularly observed. So long years of reticence would make the custom inapplicable. So that is a concept borrowed from a public law of international public law. So in order to find the international customer law, the ICJ would take a very stern stance on extensive evidence and a strict requirement about a state practice, long decades of state practice. So we may, in some cases, recall very antedated context, centuries ago. So contention would be serious, and also you may have some idea involving Dokdo, East Sea, Japan Sea, what is properly is controversial. Official name was contended in some context. That would require, in hypothetical context, many historical documents if we actually litigate in the International Court of Justice. The concept is public, however, similar that requires the commercial customs should be regularly observed by the parties. So in this way of dealings, we may consider the terms employed by the contract would lead to the normative force of a incoterms that you see in details in its actual document. So many contexts of statutory regulation about rising duties are set forth. So the document pertinent to that specific trade terms as a matter of law be incorporated into the contract by operation of this provision, the CIC provision. At the time the contract was entered into, Incoterms 1990 was applicable. Incoterms defines CIF to mean the seller delivers when the goods pass the ship's way in the port of shipment. The seller is responsible for paying the cost, freight, insurance coverage necessary to bring the goods to the named port of destination. But the risk of loss or damage to the goods passes from seller to buyer upon delivery to the port of shipping. So the court now investigate the content of a CIF terms. How does this term allocate the risk of loss? Who bears the cost? Plaintiff's legal expert contends Incoterms are inapplicable here because the contract fails to specifically incorporate them. Nonetheless, the German Supreme Court, the court of last resort in the Federal Republic of Germany for civil matters, concluded the clause FOB without specific reference to Incoterms was to be interpreted according to Incoterms simply because the terms include the clause FOB. So the court cited a case, precedent of a German Supreme Court. So it is dominant attitude of common law lawyers to look into a specific case since they are common law lawyers. They are educated and produced in the context of a common law education. So it is one source of law, and it should be official in their eye. Of course, we consider the statute would be a primary law or form of law. In any case, in this case, we have very controlling precedent rendered and conformed by many contexts of a German course. So the German code would be generous to find the normative power of Incoterms. And it facilitates the uniformity of international transaction. However, if liberalized in rather extensive context, then the genuine intent of parties may be undermined. So the judge needs to be scrupulous about intent of parties and the ways of dealings and many prior negotiations, communication, correspondence may offer the basis to find a true rule. Okay? See? Plaintiffs argue the new romance explicit retention of title in the contract to the MRI machine modified the CIF term, such that the new romance retained title and assumed the risk of loss. So that is a point I previously introduced. How do you consider this argument? The court also looked into the law of Germany, so found that passage of risk and transfer of title are two independent legal acts. So despite the differences in jargon and terms, the statutory law employed, we may be led to a similar conclusion about this distinction. So UCC also had that tendential rule, basically. So, in fact, it is standard practice in German law to agree that the transfer of title will only occur upon payment of the entire purchase price, well after the date of passing of risk and after receipt of the goods by the buyer. So, the argument on this basis would not attract the court. Well, what is the next point from plaintiff? Plaintiff next concern is that he contends that even if the CF term did not mandate the title and risk of loss passed together, the other terms in contract are evidence that the party's intention to supersede and replace the CF term such that neutral may retain title and risk of loss. So the court found that is incorrect. So what other agreements, including delivery terms? So based on delivery terms, plaintiffs posit that the parties intended to abide by the strictures of Incoterms, there will be no need to define the buyer's obligations to pay customs and arrange a further transport. So the official aspect of a CIF terms actually modified by a specific agreement, the provision of a contract. So who pay a customs or who are required to arrange a further transport, they often fall within the province of a buyer, a seller. But however, the stipulation contradicts. And this argument is undermined in other aspect by Incoterms 1990, which provides it is normally desirable the customs clearance is arranged by the party domiciled in the country where such clearance should take place. The CIF term, as defined by Incoterms, only requires the seller to clear the goods for export and is silent as to which party bears the obligation to arrange customs clearance. So this type of provision could be legitimately amenable to modification of parties when they enter into contract. For example, the expense to pay for collateral passage may fall within some party according to the trade terms as endorsed by ICC. However, that official scope of a duty to pay costs may be stipulated otherwise upon specific agreement. That would be practically possible and also kind of a usual ways of dealing to satisfy each specific commercial needs. That would not undermine the essence of CIF terms, since CIF terms have two prongs in essence. It is document transaction, you find in the title of this class, and also the tender of goods, tender of shipment documents, shipping documents would be exchanged on the condition that the payment would be made. So that point is important. However, many minor modifications may be incorporated, and that will be endorsed as a matter of law and party autonomy principle. plaintiffs also cite to the payment terms clause of the contract, which specifies the final payment was not to be made upon seller's delivery of the machine to the port of shipment, but rather upon the buyer's acceptance of the machine in Congo City. These terms speak to the final disposition of the property, not to the risk of loss or risk for loss or damage. So these payment terms also could not satisfy a condition that CF terms would not bring the full effect of Incoterms. So the plaintiffs may rely on this argument, but will be seen less persuasive in the position of a court and current standing. So the terms of the contract do not modify the CF clause in the contract such that the risk of loss remains with Neuroman. Thus, because Neuroman risk of loss or what damage to the MRI machine under the contract has to share the imaging upon delivery of the machine to the carrier at the port of shipment. So the shared imaging is a subscriber of insurance policy, and the responsibility transferred to insurance company as a matter of an insurance contract. And of course, the controversy may develop into the context between both parties based on the insurance contract. It is undisputed that the MRI machine was delivered to the carrier and damaged and in good working order. Neuroman's motion to dismiss failure to state a claim is hereby granted. So you have points highlight the issues and rules of this case. 4 items, and let them go for your review. And in BIP Oil International Ltd versus Empress Estor Brothers de Ecuador, you may find 4 points. Precisely incorporates Incoterms through Article 9.2, which incorporates uses into contract that the parties knew or ought to have known, and which in international trade is widely known and regularly observed by parties to contract of type involved in the particular trade concept. So the commercial custom has the same controversy as last case. And in this case, shipment design designated CFR has title and risk of loss to the buyer once the goods pass the ship's rail at the port of shipment. So you have same language in rule and principle across 3 terms: CFR, CIF, and FOB. The difference in CIF lies in that the seller should arrange the insurance contract and purchase insurance policy to guarantee against the loss of damages of the goods. And in CIFR, the price in point would be same in terms of allocation of cost and passage of risk. And the goods should be tested for conformity before the risk of loss passes to the buyer. In the event of subsequent damage or loss, the buyer generally must seek a remedy against the carrier or insurance rather than seller. And finally, in this case, you will learn The seller cannot avoid liability through the utilization of CF file or designation if he provided goods to the new or could not have been aware were defective when they passed over the ship sale at risk shifted to the buyer. And in this case, you also find some more legal issues about the jurisdictional question. And on page 3(1)(a), you find the basic category classed into 4 terms: E term, F term, C term. And D terms. And in the last case, your focus should be shared on this case highlight. The burden is on the buyer to establish any nonconformity of the goods, the contract, once the goods have been accepted. And under a CNF shipment contract, the buyer assumes the risk of loss of the goods while in transit and after delivery at the port of destination. And C, the UCC provides that the notice to revoke acceptance requires more than mere notification of breach and is governed by considerations of good faith, prevention of surprise, and reasonable adjustment. Finally, the buyer's exercise of dominion of the goods and performance of other acts inconsistent with the seller's continued ownership interest defeated buyer's attempt to revoke acceptance. So, if time permits, we will later see some of them, and I'll complete all the cases which will not be handled in the previous context. Any question? Okay. Sorry to make you wait. So you now time to check your attendance. Then that will go. I'll see you in the next question. I'll see you in the next question.